and semi-arid lands make up at least 80% of Kenya's landscape. Yet, water scarcity has escalated from a chronic challenge to an existential crisis, intensified by the accelerating impacts of climate change. As of March 2025, 6 counties, including Isiolo, were in their late drought phase, and by September, more counties had joined the list, with approximately 1.7 million people across ASOL regions facing acute food insecurity. Thousands more face deteriorating conditions directly linked to water stress. The climate patterns that sustained pastoral and agricultural communities for generations have fundamentally broken down. Droughts that once occurred every decade now strike every few years with devastating intensity, while most pastoral counties receive less than 50 millimeters of rainfall during critical months in 2024, far below the threshold needed for survival. When rains do arrive, they increasingly come as destructive flash floods rather than life-sustaining precipitation, destroying infrastructure and contaminating water sources.
Water is life. That is one of the biggest cliches you'll hear around the world, but unfortunately, cliche as it sounds, it is the truth. And there's no one who knows this better than the people who live in the drylands, the pastoral communities that live in areas so dry that finding water is akin to looking for gold or looking for diamonds. And for many of these communities, having donkeys therefore becomes a lifeline, because they get to save you the long distances that they have to walk to get to water. So Earthwise this week, we talk about water.
On the dusty landscapes of Gafarsa and Irisaboru villages in Isiolo County, where the locals begin their daily search for water, oftentimes at the break of dawn. The yellow jerrycans balancing on the sides of donkeys, joining dozens others walking to the nearest water source, a journey that has defined their lives for decades. This crisis manifests daily in women walking long distances to find water, children attending school thirsty, families spending up to 40% of household income purchasing water from vendors, and pastoralists watching their livestock, which is their primary livelihoods, perish from dehydration. Climate projections offer little comfort, forecasting that drought frequency and intensity will continue escalating across East Africa, transforming water from a managed resource into an increasingly scarce commodity that determines whether entire communities can survive in the places their ancestors have inhabited for centuries.
Arid and semi-arid lands cover at least 80% of Kenya's landmass, and these are the lands that are mostly occupied by these pastoral communities. But the thing about these lands is that they're constantly in cycles of drought, such that water becomes not just scarce, but a very precious commodity for these communities. And unfortunately, in these areas, the vast majority of the water sources, such as rivers, are seasonal rivers. And in seasons of drought, these rivers dry and leave the earth so dry and cracked like this, like broken pottery.
Amma anki ya Faduma bonaya. Anduri wara resaburu kubadda. Ganne mingi artuma dertuma guddad. Arti bisan godan sisani. Bisan godan sisani shida bisani guddo arganne kesa gabbani. Haruma jajaban kesa gabbani, rabbi guddan kesa gabbani. Arma akubanne gallama fnus jir. Bisan godan sankani egen tabu bisani kam laf meli dertu hakasi bisan harre dafan bisan suni namya kenna khajarole to kolleni afachun dandaw wala ta itgadbane amma hartan nuqotani hartan arganne hartan warota mani rejol wari wota fandi galatika warati hartan nubanani hartan warabanne hartan amnam security hartan tis tolfanne min kenna ibban beser raguranne namto kum saddeet liphine tokkolle kum saddeet liphine ji'a kum kudhan ja'a liphine bisaan kan waraabbachuu jira. Bisaan kan waraabbanne harkaan filaa haan baaphii harkaan dhaachuun dandeenyu duum kee duudanii waraabbatanii keessallee namni ijoollee xixiqqoo qaba jaaroolee akka kennati bisaan ol korree fudhachuun dandeenyu bisaan kan haan baaphii kan sila waraabban am wanni nu feenu am sila soolafa gubbatti nuu kaan ammoo galati hawar wota fandi haan ramnaani warri bimbeeku warra Red Cross galati guddaan hawari duri guyyan warma baan waan cufaan nu saydiyee daraamu nuu kenne shaabbuun nuu kenne ondoo nuu kenne waan nu bisaanii waraabban jaambii nuu kenne hatta fasiliin naf dibatan nuu kenne galati guddaan ka warraatiif ka warra wota fandi akkan galati keessaniif ka rabbi guddaati.
Sisi hapa tumeshagua kila kitu, bunge, seneta, MCA, governor, lakini kutoka ilishuhudia kutoka huko kwa maji flood ilitokea na wale wote wa siasa hajafika, lakini NGO ndio walikuja kusaidia sisi, na saa hii nashukuru watu wa Water Fund ndio walikuja kushimbia sisi maji wakati maji yalipatikana. Alafu ndio shida ambayo ilikuwa ilioko ya maji ilibungua, na kuanzia kutoka damu mahali ambapo ilikuwa kijiji iko kilomita 3 na ilikuwa mbeleni kilomita 5 ilikuwa inachota maji kutoka mtoni.
The thing about living in a big city is that you have some privileges that many people across the country do not have. For example, if you want water, you have it in your house. It's already piped into your house. You just open the tap and the water starts flowing. And if you live in a neighborhood where water supply is not consistent, these jerrycans then become your friend. However, even in that case, you're still going to get that water pipe to your house at some point. But in the pastoral lands, these jerrycans hold a different kind of meaning for the people here because piped water is not common. Very few people, barely anyone actually has piped water. And so these jerrycans become companions and maybe wheelbarrows like this, where they pile up the jerrycans on the wheelbarrow. And then they have to walk for hours, kilometers, looking for this water until they find it. And so to solve this problem, donors are now starting to help these communities, particularly the women, because they're the ones who are looking for this water, to bring the water closer to them through kiosks such as this, thereby cutting their journey significantly from spending probably an entire day looking for water to just maybe 3 kilometers, 2 kilometers, 1 kilometer. This water kiosk here is literally right across from a village. So for the women living in this village, the distance is less than 1 kilometer.
Kwa kweli mradi wa maji imetusaidia sana, imeturahisishia mambo mengi because before hii maji kuja kwa tunapata tabu ya kuendea maji wa Sonyiro, ni mbali sana, 5 kilometers unaendea maji huko alafu kirudi maji bado haitoshi. Lakini sasa hivi tunapata maji vizuri. Hospitali pia wajawazito walikuwa wakienda kujifungua lazima uende na maji jarikani 2 ndio upate kufanywa usafi na kila kitu hapo hospitali. Lakini sasa hivi maji yapo hata hospitali, mashuleni pia maji yapo na tunapata maji kwa urahisi na inatusaidia sana.
Unaishi hapa karibu ama mbali?
Naishi hapa tu karibu. Sio mbali na maji.
Na kiosk ilikuja hapa wakati gani? Miaka ngapi? Miezi ngapi?
Like 6 or 7 months ago.
7 months. So before 7 months ago ulikuwa unatoa maji wapi?
Mbali sana. Like Sonyiro.
Sonyiro River?
Yeah.
Kilomita ngapi hiyo?
5 kilometers.
5 kilometers. Na inakuchukua muda gani ndio uende na urudi hiyo 5 kilometers?
Inanawa tu. Unazaenda by the time umerudi ni saa 6 saa 5.
Alafu una decide ukishafika labda umerudi nyumbani na jerrycan moja umeenda hivyo mbali. Una decide aje maji utafanyia nini? Kama utapikia, utaoga, utaosha vyombo, utafua?
Tunatumia punda. So probably unaweza pata like 3. Mtungi 3 ukifika haitoshi bado step. In the evening you still have to go back. Unaenda tena maji mengine unarudi jioni kabisa.
Kwa hivyo kwa siku unaenda mara 2.
Yeah.
Ndio uweze kupata maji ya
kupata maji system inaweza kusustain.
Na wakati kuna ukame mnafanya nini? Mlikuwa mkifanya nini?
Bado still tunaenda huko tunachimba ndio upate maji.
Mnachimba mchanga ndio upate maji. Sasa vile hii kiosk ilikuja hapa, maisha yako yamebadilika aje?
Wow. Mbadilika vizuri sana. Kwa sababu hii maji ni karibu, si waste time kusema naenda mbali. Na bado nakuja nachota maji ya kutosha na nafanya usafi vizuri kwa nyumba. So
kwa hivyo mambo ya magonjwa, watoto kuwa na ugonjwa, hiyo hakuna tena.
Saidia sana.
Na maji iko hapa siku mzima ama mnakuja specific times?
Mostly morning, asubuhi mpaka around saa 6 hivi. Alafu kuna na break kwa sababu pia mwenye nashikilia hapa na
pia lazima afanye kazi kwake.
So after that ni kitu saa 9 mpaka 6.
Sophia's story is not unique. It's a story of thousands of women across this landscape. And in the daytime heat, water collection becomes even harder. But with water projects now bringing this precious resource closer, many are now no longer forced to go out in the hot sun and can instead wait for the cooler hours of the day.
Na ni maji yenyewe mnauziwa ama ni free?
Tunauziwa lakini
ni affordable.
Anaweza pata.
Na kama jerrycan moja hivi pesa ngapi?
Jerrycan wanahesabu jerrycan karibia 5 shilingi 10.
Jerrycan 5 shilingi 10. Wow, that's affordable. Na wanawake wasichana ndo sana uhusika kutafuta maji. Wakati wa ukame, kabla mpate kioski hivi maji karibu, mnakusanyana wote mnaenda kutafuta maji. Na wakati huo labda wasichana walikuwa wakienda shule ama hawaendi shule, na saizi vile maji yamekuja karibu, maisha yao watoto wasichana yamebadilika vipi?
Maisha yao watoto kabla maji yakuje, tunatafuta hizo punda, uweke mitungi juu uende nao, kale lazima muende watu 3 4 hata watoto nyumbani. Lakini sasa hivi watoto wanapata nafasi, wanaenda shule vizuri, wakirudi wazazi na wanakuja kuchota maji. Na pia wanakuwa na time, wakitoka shule pia wanakuja kusaidia wazazi ile evening hours pia.
Community yetu wenye walipata hii mradi ya maji walianza kuchimba baada ya kupata umuhimu wa choo na kutumia, na walianza kutumia vizuri, na latrine coverage actually improve, and distance ya kuenda kuchota maji ilipungua because maji wanapata hapo karibu ya kiosk.
Isiolo Integrated Water Project, valued at 76.9 million shillings, takes a holistic approach to addressing these challenges. Rather than focusing solely on infrastructure, the project weaves together water resource management, supply systems, and sanitation improvements across 45 villages.
Water scarcity and sanitation cannot be delinked. And then when you bring in the climate crisis, these three cannot be delinked. What are you seeing the situation as in Isiolo to warrant you to come and try and resolve this problem for the communities?
First of all, Isiolo is one of the counties in the ASAL areas that has been facing water scarcity, community walking long distance to access water sources. It's also one of the counties that faces cyclic events of drought and flooding. So looking at those issues, they also affect human hygiene. They cause water-related diseases. So all those challenges, they made us to prioritize this area as one of the areas that needs intervention to reduce access to water, to ensure the community are accessing safe and clean water.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the disease prevalence that you're seeing before the water came closer to the communities?
Because of the flooding and the scarcity of water in some of the areas, most cases the community face diseases like malaria, more especially during floods. There are also diseases like diarrhea and other water-related diseases. Yeah.
So when you talk about WASH, that's WASH, what is that exactly?
WASH actually means that you're looking at water, you're looking at sanitation, you're also looking at hygiene. So it's a whole component to address WASH intervention that you need to look at. You look at clean water supply, you ensure that at household level, at community level, community are able to access sanitation. At the same time, they practice good hygiene practices.
So hii mradi ya maji venye tumeletewa, tumeweza kuchimba choo, tumeanza kupanda mti, kuosha vyombo ni rahisi, kufua nguo ni rahisi.
Hii ni latrine walianza kuchimba baada ya kupata mafunzo. Moja yao because now the area is ODF after kupata hiyo mafunzo ya umuhimu wa choo na kupata maji karibu.
Project scope includes drilling and fencing a new borehole at Bisan, installing solar pumping systems and constructing steel and masonry tanks with capacities ranging from 10 meters cubic to 100 meters cubic and laying over 8 kilometers of pipeline. Perhaps most significantly, it includes the construction of a massive 40,000 meter cube water pan at Isiolo, a community reservoir that can serve as a drought buffer.
Inafaa sola, nyumba sola ilikuwa inajenga hapa, sola ilikuwa inaweka juu, alafu nyumba moja ya washman, ile nyumba kubwa, kwa sababu ilikuwa usiku na mchana, inafaa kujenga huko.
With water now closer, the transformation is visible. Sophia shows me how she transports the water to her home, about 500 meters from the water kiosk. It looks like an easy thing to do, but it isn't.
So even though vile mnasafirisha maji?
Hivi ndio tunasafirisha maji. Muda mwingine pia unaweza tumia wheelbarrow.
Sasa kama unaenda kilomita 5 pia bado unafanya hivi?
Kilomita 5 unaenda na punda.
At 95% completion for regional works, the Isiolo project sees itself as a model for water security interventions across Kenya's arid regions. The lessons learned here, which is about community engagement, integrated planning and sustainability mechanisms, are already being applied to similar projects across the country.
I'd like to know how you choose where to put your money, which communities to invest in, because if you look at Isiolo, from the numbers I've seen, you have at least 45,000 villages that are benefiting from the investments you put in the county. And at this point, we have, by October actually, the latest numbers show that at least 2.1 million Kenyans will be facing hunger crisis. So these are communities that will be facing water stress, food stress, and stuff like that. So how then do you determine that this is where we need to put our money?
Yeah, that is a very good question. The most important criteria that has been approved by our board, and especially also with the support of development partners, is to look at the poverty index of those areas, to look at water coverage, and also to look at sanitation coverage. There are also areas where we have had previous investments, so we try to spread it for equity so that we don't have areas which are grossly underfunded while others are lacking. So those are the preliminary criteria that we have. But as an institution, we are in the process of doing a new funding criteria, which is at the parliament level.
Okay, so you're not giving these counties loans?
No, we are not giving loans. But it's good to appreciate that on a wider scale, we have different products or investments that we are doing. There are some which are grants, and there are some which we work with other water companies, especially in areas that are already doing well, which are commercial in nature, where they go to the banks and get loans for which we pay subsidies. But for SWASAP, for instance, where we are focusing, this is a grant from the Danish government. And the period of, I think it was from 2021 to 2026.
So, countrywide, how many people would you say have directly benefited, and now you can comfortably say that they're now water secure?
Currently, we have around 7.2 million people who have benefited. And this is with a funding of approximately 50 billion. And this is since the inception in 2024. So we have progressively increased our budgets from a period where we were getting 200 million to currently when we are managing a budget of close to 5 billion annually.
Looking at the The vast majority of the areas we work in are the arid, semi-arid lands. And these are places that are very vulnerable to climate change. And climate change has also impacted every single sector of the economy. And water is one of those that is hit the most. How are you adapting your strategies with climate change in mind?
Thanks. We have deliberately designed these projects to be climate proofed in a way that they can withstand flooding, in a way that they can also withstand high temperatures. Where water pans are done, you will find we do very large high volumes or big volume of water pans, as opposed to the small volumes one which will suffer from evapotranspiration within a short time.
So this now brings us to the question of sustainability, particularly for donor-funded programs. And the trend we've seen in the past is that as soon as the donor pulls out their money, this project collapses, either through one reason or other, but within 5 to 10 years, the project has collapsed. How are you ensuring sustainability with the projects you're running?
Yeah, thanks. That is a very good question. From the onset, in the design, there are appropriate measures which are taken in the project. They are basically training of these communities on how to handle the projects, or there are operation manuals which are being done to enable them to be looking at them and what measures in terms of maintenance. There are also other accompanying measures like having committees that then manage this project.
Sustainability plan includes training programs for local technicians in borehole maintenance, solar system repairs, and water management. Community-managed maintenance funds, supported by user fees, ensure that repairs and replacements can be funded locally rather than waiting for external intervention. The project also promotes water-efficient technologies, including drip irrigation systems for school greening activities. These initiatives demonstrate how communities can maximize water use while building resilience against future droughts.
Kama mkazi wa huku, umeona changamoto wakazi huku mmepitia, umeona maisha wakati wa ukame na labda wakati mko na maji karibu. Kama wakazi wa huku, mngependa kuona permanent solution ya kutatua shida zenu za maji, ingekuwa ni nini?
Permanent solution yenye ingepatikana, hizi kiosk sawa ziko, watu huwa wanatoka from different places wanakuja kupata, na ziko almost everywhere. So ingekuwa possible, watu wangekuwa wanapata tap around their own place, kwa wanaweza kumfereji kwa bomba. So if that would be possible, ingekuwa.
And as completion approaches, the project's impact extends beyond immediate water access. In Gafarsa, small businesses are emerging around the reliable water supply. In Sericho, where the project also exists, school enrollment has increased as children no longer need to miss classes for water collection. And across all the 45 villages, the designation of 32 as open defecation free represents a fundamental shift in public health outcomes. Would you like to interact with us? Earthwise would love to hear from you.